Alright, it's Henry again, and this is the second work-in-progress video for my mega-sized Dokudo Zaku. And at this point, construction on the Zaku is pretty much done. As far as the stuff that I've done since last time, the skull is basically the same. I've just done a little bit of sanding and puttying on it, just smoothing everything out. The chest plate I didn't have done last time, but I just glued on 4 pieces of pla plate and then put at first I put a layer of epoxy putty and then I put a layer of polyester putty on top of that and then just sanded everything down smooth. I'm thinking I may get a little bit of pla plate and close this panel line up a little bit, because that panel line's a little bit wider than I would like, because the way it's constructed, it's actually like, hold up, it's 2 halves that are connected to this dark red part. And I think I may just put a piece of pla plate here to make that panel line a little bit thinner. Anyway, let's see. Can't remember if I had the elbow armor sanded down last time, but it's sanded down. The backpack is pretty much done. I filled in all the unnecessary gaps with some pla plate and then scribed some panel lines. I've got a little bit of putty back here that needs to be sanded down, but that's really nothing too serious. I finally got the thrusters figured out. I couldn't find any like ready-made thrusters I could use, so what I did was I just took the thrusters that came with the kit and chopped them in half and then flipped them upside down and glued this piece of white pla plate on there. Chopped the connector off, glued the connector onto this side of the pla plate, and then put a little Kotobukiya part inside, and that actually formed some nice little Zaku 1 thrusters. So I'm actually very happy with the way those turned out. Looks really good. A lot smaller than the S-type thrusters that the Char Zaku came with. So really happy with the backpack at this point. Let's see. Filled in 2 little gaps there, and that's nothing really too much. The belly, I had to fill in all that with putty and then add this detail on the belly there. And then sanded it all down, smoothed it out, scribed some panel lines there. And yeah, I originally had some, like a little rectangular piece attached to the top of the front skirt armor, because there's a little rectangular notch there on the Master Grade Zaku 1. And I did that, and then once I did it, I realized that it kept the front skirts from being able to move forward. So I had to remove that little detail and just sand it down and take it back to normal. So that modification was kind of scrapped. Anyway, holes in the sides of the legs are now filled in and sanded over and got panel lines scribed across them, so those are ready to go. Got the little arch cut out in the back of the leg armor there. And I think that's pretty much everything on the Zaku's body. Went over the LED in the last video, so I won't bother going over that again. Let's see, as far as the weapons, that's where I've been working mostly on since the last video, was the weapons. The Heat Hawk, you'll have to excuse this little energy cable. It's really loose, because I was planning to just glue it in place once I get everything painted, so I'm just going to have to hold it like this. Anyway, I extended the shaft with some plastic tubes, easy enough. The Heat Hawk, honestly, has been the most difficult part of this entire project. Namely, the blade here. I didn't cut down the original blade. I just glued 2 pieces of pla plate on each side of it, on this side and that side, and then cut them to a curve and cemented them on, and then just filled in the spaces between the gray and the white with putty. And then just sand until I finally got everything smoothed out. And I had to put some more putty and actually super glue. I have some like super glue based putty. It's kind of like how you mix putty or super glue and talcum together to make kind of a putty, but it's like already made. I think Gaia Notes makes it. And use that along the edge because it's really, really hard and won't crumble easily, kind of like Tamiya putty sometimes does. And use that to get a nice sharp edge on there. The energy cable on here had to be bigger than the one that was already on the kit, so I just cut off the original one and threw it out and used some plastic tube, the same tube that I used for the shaft. I cut into individual pipe segments, and then there's actually a wire with a mesh pipe inside there, and put them all on there. And like I said, it's kind of loose right now, but I'll glue that in place once it's all painted. Cutting the pipe segments out wasn't the hard part. Beveling the edges of the pipe segments was a huge pain in the ass, because the only way to really do it without mind-numbingly sanding each one is to put it on some sort of lathe, and I used my Dremel. You could also use a power drill, I guess. But I put each pipe segment on my Dremel and with like a piece of masking tape on a toothpick, and then turned it on, and then just put my hobby knife on to bevel the edge of each one. And in theory, that sounds like it would work pretty well, but they didn't all exactly come out even. I mean, you can't really tell. I mean, from this distance, they all look even, but once you get up close, they're not as even as I would like. But anyway, it looks good enough. So, punch shield, I think, for the last video, this was pretty much all I had. And since then, I have scratch built a handle. All this is just plot plate and plastic tubes. There's a little Kotobukiya part on the end there. The hardest part of this, though, was I had to measure, where is it? I had to measure this peg in the hand and then cut a hole the exact same shape into that tube so that he could actually hold the punch shield. And I probably should have given it a little bit more leeway because it's kind of tight, but it still fits. And come on. Wait a minute. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera just because I have to get it close to actually look at it so I can tell what I'm doing. Anyway, there we go, finally. So, handle fits in the hand, then just put this piece on top of it, and plug it into that big old polycap in the shield, and there you go. So, punch shield works out pretty darn well, I think. Oops. There we go. Alright. Last but not least, let's see, machine gun. I think last video I had basically just a big rectangular box for the machine gun. Since then I've added a raised area on here, this raised area here, and then added this kind of D-shaped part on the side. And I've actually got an LED in here. There's an LED in there, and I've got a little lens. I actually used the clear lens that came with the kit and then glued a Wave HI on top of it just because it looked better. So it's got that. And then I glued, or cemented rather, all of the parts that were compatible from the Zaku 2 machine gun on here. I'm going to glue that lens in place once it's painted. Scratch built this thingy on the back here. The battery is inside the ammo drum, and I really wanted to put a switch in here, but there was so much limited space, I ended up breaking the contacts on like 2 of my switches, so I finally got frustrated and gave up and just said, you know what, if I want the LED to be on, I'll put the battery in. If I want it to be off, I'll take the battery out, because the battery is, I mean, it's easy to put in and take out, almost as easy as putting in the, or turning on the switch. So put the little lens over it, and there we go. Light up scope for the machine gun. And like I said, I'll glue that in place. And I think that's it. At this point, construction is done. There's a few little things I gotta sand and clean up, but nothing serious. And we are just about ready to paint this Zaku. And after a good long painting session, I've got the kit covered in a nice coat of primer, and it's looking pretty sharp, I have to say. Really happy with the way this is looking right now. It's always nice to get a kit and a coat of primer and just look at the whole thing in grayscale. Plus the advantage to that is it lets you see all of the little imperfections you've got, and there are a few places where I'm going to have to smooth some things out. Like here on the chest plate, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done. There's a little imperfection right there, and then some little lumps and dents that need to be smoothed out, and specifically some places where I did modifications, like some of these panel lines that I scribed need to be cleaned up a little bit, but not too awfully much work in terms of cleaning everything up. Just about everything looks halfway decent. Some machine gun. Put a little piece of masking tape over the LED so that didn't get painted over. So, now that everything is primed, I'm going to spend a day or so cleaning up the little imperfections and sanding those down. And then we'll be ready to move on to the paint job. So that'll be what I'll be doing in part 3 of this work in progress. So with that, I'll see you guys next time.